Good night. Happy New Year.
This is your daily dose of all things royal.
Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history.
Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. By now, you probably have seen the news of Maduro has been captured by the United States, and he's on his way to New York City to face justice. It truly has been a historic day for the Venezuelans, not only in Venezuela, but Venezuelans around the world rejoicing.
Mandy, capturaron a Maduro.
No! What? Yes! ¡No! Oh, de verdad. Te lo juro. You promise? I promise.
Yes, sir.
De verdad. Te lo juro. ¿En serio? Tanto en las noticias. Mira tu teléfono.
Now, what's really interesting here today is that while we see the Venezuelans celebrating all around the world, wherever they may be, over this dictator being removed, the liberal left couldn't allow Donald Trump to have this win. So, of course, they are openly denouncing what Trump did in the middle of the night. First up, we have the male version of Meghan Markle, Zohran Mamdani, commenting by saying, "I was briefed this morning on the U.S. military capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, as well as their planned imprisonment in federal custody here in New York City. Unilaterally attacking a sovereign nation is an act of war and a violation of federal and international law. The blatant pursuit of regime change doesn't just affect those abroad, it directly impacts New Yorkers, including tens of thousands of Venezuelans who call this city home. My focus is their safety and the safety of every New Yorker, and my administration will continue to monitor the situation and issue relevant guidance." Okay, Mamdani, I think maybe you just might need to sit this one out because you've only been on the job 2 days. And do you think Donald Trump really cares what you have to say about this matter? Seriously. Meanwhile, in New York, Venezuelans are ecstatic the Maduro regime is over.
I'm waiting for this day. It's a special. Thanks, President Trump. Of course, thanks. Oh my God, this is a special day. I am very excited. I am very happy. It's amazing. It's amazing.
What do you...
Bajo cadenas, bajo cadenas, gritaba el Señor, gritaba el Señor, el pobre en su choza libertad pidió.
I swear, Mamdani is literally the male version of Meghan Markle. I mean, why did he really need to insert himself here? He's 2 days on the job as mayor. If he had a basic understanding of the city that he was taking over, instead of having to virtue signal, then he would know that Venezuelans escaped to New York because Maduro made their country so unlivable that they had to flee. I mean, I guess it's not all that surprising, considering Mamdani is unapologetic for being a socialist and driving the city towards communism. Why wouldn't he support a murderous, illegitimate narco-terrorist dictator from Venezuela? And then you had throughout the day the Democrats crying over the fact that Trump didn't pass this through Congress first. Now, does anybody believe that if Trump discussed this with the Democrats and let them know that this is what they were planning on doing, does anybody really think that this would have been pulled off successfully? Somebody would have leaked. They just need an excuse to whine. If this was Obama or Biden or, heaven forbid, if it was Kamala, do you think any of them would be crying like this? Absolutely not. I mean, Obama did this with Syria.
Mr. President, did you notify any members of Congress in advance?
Marco, do you want to talk about that? Because you were involved in it.
Sure. We call members of Congress immediately after. This was not the kind of mission that you can do congressional notification on. It was a trigger-based mission in which conditions had to be met night after night. We watched and monitored that for a number of days. So it's just simply not the kind of mission you can call people and say, hey, we may do this at some point in the next 15 days. But it's largely a law enforcement function. Remember, at the end of the day, at its core, this was an arrest of 2 indicted fugitives of American justice, and the Department of War supported the Department of Justice in that job. Now, there are broader policy implications here, but it's just not the kind of mission that you can pre-notify because it endangers the mission.
You know, the one thing that is troubling to me to see is the amount of people who are supporting socialism and communism. Today in Times Square, it was amazing to me to see how quickly all of these people mobilized with their ready-made signs to protest against Donald Trump's military action. Now, some would debate and say that, yes, this country now is at war with America, but it's not. So many Venezuelans are ecstatic that Maduro is no longer in charge and that a new government is going to be implemented with the hope of things getting better. Like, what's so wrong with that? I'll tell you what's wrong with it. It's because it was Donald Trump who did it. Not Obama, not Biden, not Hillary Clinton, or any of those other demons. It was because Donald Trump did it. Had it been one of those other demons, none of this would be happening. Where was this fake compassion and protesting with the amount of drugs that were being smuggled in here and killing Americans? Or where was the fake compassion when Jocelyn Ngare, who was brutally raped and murdered by 2 Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang members? Where was the Free Palestine protesting left when this was happening to Americans? You know, at this point, after what I've seen in this country and the support for Maduro, you know, more so than the actual Venezuelan people, that we do have people who are benefiting somehow from this corrupted system. And that's why they continuously support the destruction of America. I mean, look at the double standard and stupidity of the left. Nobody had an issue when Joe Biden called Nicolas Maduro a dictator. You see, these communist Democrats, they defend Maduro because this is the type of destruction that they want to see happen across the United States. This photo here is of Pennsylvania. And the reason why they're doing this to America is not only to weaken this country, but also to have us all dependent on the government, more easy to control. And it's all being done out of greed. And the biggest demon of them all is the UN. They actually had the audacity to speak out, sharing their concerns on whether or not the United States was following international law. With all due respect, fuck your international law. This is the United States of America. We follow the Constitution. Former CIA Sarah Adams said it best. The United Nations has zero respect for the rule of law overseas. Some of us were there with them, so please don't pretend we are stupid. We saw genocide cover-ups, corruption, trafficking of women, children, weapons, heck, whatever they could get their dirty hands into. Aid theft, protection rackets, sexual abuse, rapes, and murders covered up as mere misconduct. Extrajudicial killings and criminals shielded with good press releases. The only travesty here is that the American taxpayer funds this corrupt and entirely useless organization. Now go ahead and listen to how warped these communists who think that they are all about democracy here in America think about what Trump did.
Going into another country with enough firepower to take their president and then saying you're going to charge their president with criminal charges in our country is such an insane breach of sovereignty. I'm like so shook.
Well, the Venezuelans think differently.
Yeah, just a quick question. Just so we're all aligned in 2026, we know we're not the good guys, right?
Okay, well, if you're not a bot, which you might be, I don't even care. Do you know what happens when the United States starts bombing and invading a sovereign country?
To be more clear, the United States bombed Venezuela and then abducted their president and his wife.
Be honest. Who's secretly rooting for Venezuela and Iran?
Donald Trump, yo sé que posiblemente tú no vayas a ver este video. Yo lo sé, lo tengo claro. Pero coño, no nos puedes quitar el privilegio de mostrarnos una foto de ese coño de su madre tras las rejas, ¿vale? Por favor, te lo pedimos. Hoy es el mejor día de nuestras vidas para todos esos venezolanos. Dios mío, hoy es un día bendecido que nunca vamos a olvidar.
Yo creo que nadie que entiende la emoción. Pero desde mis 7 años me tocó vivir en un país donde me arrebataron mi infancia, me arrebataron todo.
Dicen que si tienen a Maduro.
¿Quién dice?
Salió Delcy diciendo que dónde Carrizo estaba. Ay, no, yo le juro, no sé, no me quiero ilusionar. Gente, Maduro fue capturado.
No lo podía creer cuando estaba viendo esto.
Le queremos dar gracias a Dios por su milagro. A los que no dejan de creer que Dios es grande.
Ay, nadie sabe cómo se siente en este momento venezolano, absolutamente nadie, o sea, no va a devolver lo que nos quitó, pero estoy muy feliz de ahora que mis hermanas, que mis futuras generaciones, que los niños de ahora venezolanos van a pasar todo lo que hemos pasado.
Now, on the surface, rightfully so, there's a lot of chatter online with people saying that what Trump did was illegal, not taking into account that, for the last, I want to say, decade or so, Maduro had indictments here in the United States for narco-terrorism, and it was legitimately killing Americans. It certainly is bad, but there is more to this story. Now, some are saying that the real reason why we did this was because we want the oil. Well, of course we want the oil, but hear me out. Let's give Donald Trump a chance to help Venezuela turn their country around and put them on the path to prosperity. Yeah, we want the oil because it's going to make our energy prices go down. What is wrong with doing trade and paying Venezuela for this oil that's going to help their economy and provide jobs? You see how this works? Now, it would be different if the United States went in there and brought their own people and didn't open up the market to help the country of Venezuela, but I don't think that that's going to happen. And this is where we have to give it a chance. Sure, I know in the past with regime changes, like with Syria, Libya, Guyana, yeah, America didn't do those countries justice and, for the most part, impoverished them. But I think it's going to be different here. So we're just going to have to wait and see how this develops and who takes over to then run the country. Now, even though Maduro had been removed, there's still people who support the regime, like the vice president who stepped up today and had pushed back against the United States.
Gobiernos del mundo están sencillamente impactados de que sea la República Bolivariana de Venezuela víctima y objeto de un ataque de esta naturaleza que tiene sin duda alguna tinte sionista. Es realmente vergonzoso. Lo dijo nuestro padre libertador en la Carta de Jamaica. El velo se ha rasgado, ya hemos visto la luz y se nos quiere volver a las tinieblas. Se han roto las cadenas, ya hemos sido libres y nuestros enemigos pretenden de nuevo esclavizarnos. Si hay algo que el pueblo venezolano y que este país tiene muy claro, es que jamás volveremos a ser esclavos. Se activa toda Venezuela y el decreto que ya fue suscrito por el presidente Maduro, único presidente de Venezuela. Hay un solo presidente en este país que se llama Nicolás Maduro Moro.
Okay, so allow me to just go ahead and share my thoughts on this situation developing. I think overall, Venezuela is playing a very strategic part in the whole grand scheme of things. You see, on the surface, sure, who doesn't want to keep drugs off the street and not kill any more Americans, as well as not have any more of these gang members infiltrating into the United States? Obviously, the homeland is safer because of that. Now, we have to keep in mind that the United States literally took out the biggest strategic ally for China, Russia, Iran, Cuba, all our enemies that want to see us pretty much decimate, especially China. They're probably the most pissed out of all of them. They were literally there less than 24 hours ago with Maduro before he got captured. And you can tell that they were bothered by it because less than 5 hours ago, the Chinese embassy spoke out against the United States for taking this military action. So they're pissed off. Not like that's anything new, but, they're pissed off that we had taken away their strategic ally. Because remember, part of the fentanyl crisis is a result of China supplying these Latin countries with the ingredients to make this fentanyl that will then get smuggled into the United States, ending up killing many Americans. But this is not the whole story. The bigger play here, and this is just my opinion, I'm just speculating, is that this has to do with dismantling the whole George Soros network in order to reposition us back onto the global stage as a superpower. You see, unbeknownst to many of us, Venezuela played a very strategic role in the 2020 election.
I can hardly wait to put forth all the evidence we have collected on Dominion, starting with the fact it was created to produce altered voting results in Venezuela for Hugo Chavez, and then shipped internationally to manipulate votes for purchase in other countries, including this one. It was funded by money from Venezuela and Cuba, and China has a role in it also. We have staggering statistical evidence. We have staggering testimony from witnesses, including one who was personally in briefings when all of this was discussed and planned, beginning with Hugo Chavez and how it was designed there, and then saw it happening in this country. As soon as the state shut down on election night and stopped counting, those are the states where the most egregious problems occurred.
Nicolas Maduro was indicted in 2020 in the United States. He is not the legitimate president of Venezuela. That's not just us saying it. The first Trump administration, the Biden administration, the second Trump administration, none of those three recognized him. He's not recognized by the European Union and multiple countries around the world.
Now, the reason why the United States does not recognize Nicolas Maduro as the legitimate president of Venezuela is because his history of election fraud and cheating. But the controversy that pertains to Donald Trump is centered around these voting machines that were provided by Smartmatic. The controversy began in Venezuela in 2004, where Smartmatic faced accusations from opposition groups of enabling election fraud under Hugo Chavez and Maduro. These are claims, though, that the company denies, stating it only provides tech and doesn't control outcomes. But since then, the company has been under tremendous amount of scrutiny, especially with its ties to Venezuela. And recent scandals include the 2023 to 2025 bribery charges against executives for schemes involving Philippine and Venezuelan contracts.
to collect evidence on the financial interests of some of the governors and secretaries of state who actually bought into the Dominion systems to line their own pockets by getting a voting machine in that would either make sure their election was successful or they got money for their family from it. Well, for fraud this serious, I think even if the states are stupid enough to go ahead and certify the votes where we know the machines were operating and producing altered election results, then they will be set aside by the fraud also. I mean, we are talking about hundreds of thousands of votes. President Trump won this election in a landslide.
You see, what makes Smartmatic so interesting is the person that was appointed chairman in 2014. And that would be Lord Mark Malloch Brown. And if you don't know who he is a prominent British diplomat who is a globalist with a distinguished career spanning with the United Nations, global development, service in the UK government, and honors from the British monarchy. Yep. This guy was knighted as Knight Commander of the Order of St. Michael and St. George. He's a KCMG in the 2007 New Year honors for his contributions to international affairs. This honor is a prestigious honor bestowed in the name of the sovereign. From 2007 to 2009, under Prime Minister Gordon Brown, he served as Minister of State at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, with responsibility for Africa, Asia, and the United Nations. In this role, he attended cabinet meetings, was sworn into the Privy Council, and was elevated to the House of Lords as a life peer. Baron Malloch Brown of St. Leonard's Forest in the county of West Sussex, to enable him to sit in Parliament. He stepped down from the ministerial position in 2009, citing personal and family reasons, and remains a crossbench peer in the House of Lords, though currently on leave of absence. His professional ties to Smartmatic, which is a multinational company specializing in electronic voting systems and election technology, as I said earlier, began in 2014. That year, Malloch Brown co-founded SGO Corporation Limited, which is a London-based holding company, alongside Smartmatic's CEO, Antonio Mujica. SGO's primary asset was Smartmatic itself. Malloch Brown served as chairman of SGO's board of directors from 2014 onward, a position that gave him significant oversight of Smartmatic's strategic direction. In this role, he actively promoted the company's technology around the world. For example, in 2015, he presented Smartmatic's voting solutions in Puerto Rico, highlighting their potential to boost election transparency and even support economic growth. He often emphasized the company's strong audit features and endorsements from respected organizations like the Carter Center. Malloch Brown's extensive background in international affairs and democracy building, including his UN roles, time as a UK government minister, and contributions recognized by royal honors, align closely with Smartmatic's mission. He advocated for innovations such as online voting in places like the United States and helped expand the company's work into areas like biometrics and e-governance. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Malloch Brown's long-standing connection to billionaire philanthropist George Soros has often drawn attention in discussions about Smartmatic. The two have been close associates for decades. Malloch Brown once rented an apartment from Soros in New York, served as vice chairman of Soros Fund Management and the Open Society Institute, and led the Open Society Foundations from 2021 until stepping down in 2024. While these ties have fueled speculation, especially in debates about global elections and election integrity, Smartmatic has consistently denied any ownership or influence by Soros. Oh, sure. The Open Society Foundations have no connection to the company. Okay. So now you can see the perspective that I'm taking here with saying that I think that there's more to this than meets the eye. Because after us, so now you can understand why I think there's a little bit more to this than meets the eye. After all, what do we talk about on this channel? We talk about these globalists and the role that Agenda 2030 had played here in the 2020 election, and the purpose of Harry and Meghan doing everything that they've been doing here that simply don't make any kind of sense, but definitely align with everything that we are seeing happening at the same time across the West. So you see these globalist networks like Soros, the UN, and those authoritarian regimes like Venezuela, China, Cuba, they all share one common goal, and that is to undermine American sovereignty. And it's not just countries that we are fed propaganda and told we must hate, like China, Russia, Cuba, North Korea. These are countries that are all following the same globalist model. So that would include the UK, EU, Canada, Australia, all of these countries working towards this globalist agenda and essentially following in China's footsteps of communism. And that's the scary thing. You see, we're already seeing it seep here into the United States. I mean, case in point, we should be united today in being happy that Maduro was captured and now the Venezuelans can actually thrive. But instead, we have these communists here who are screaming and crying about human rights for Maduro. These people care more about foreigners than they actually care about American citizens. And that should be a wake-up call to many Americans in seeing what this government is and saying, no, we don't want it. I think this capture of Maduro will be the catalyst to start taking down this global infrastructure. There's going to be enough evidence connecting not only foreign governments, but also actors linked together in ways that you simply can't deny. We've done a lot of that here on this channel with the royals and Harry and Meghan and who they're connected to. I think that's just the tip of the iceberg. Make no mistake, the royals are a part of all of this. Maybe not the queen so much. Maybe they didn't tell her of everything that was going on, but she had an idea. I mean, this has been going on for a while. But as far as Harry and Meghan and what they've been doing over here in the United States, oh, you can bet that Charles knew. I mean, if you haven't noticed, all roads seem to be leading back to the UK. And I'm going to bet you this is why Keir Starmer had very little to say about this capture today with Maduro.
To Donald Trump about what's happened in Venezuela?
No, I haven't, and it's obviously a fast-moving situation, and we need to establish all the facts. What I can say is that the UK was not involved in any way in this operation, and as you'd expect, we're focusing on British nationals in Venezuela and working very closely with our embassy. And so I will want to talk to the president, I will want to talk to allies, but at the moment, I think we need to establish the facts. I think President Trump is doing a press conference later, so hopefully more information will come out then.
What is clear, though, which the White House has said, is that America carried out strikes on Venezuela and captured their leader, Maduro. Some politicians in this country have already condemned that. Do you?
Well, I want to establish the facts first. I want to speak to President Trump. I want to speak to allies. As I say, I can be absolutely clear that we were not involved in that. And as you know, I always say and believe we should all uphold international law. But I think at this stage, fast-moving situation, let's establish the facts and take it from there.
And just lastly, for people who might have family there, or the small number of Brits in Venezuela, there are some there, it might be a small number, but of course people will be very concerned. What would their advice be?
Yeah, there's about 500 there in Venezuela, and we're working with the embassy to make sure that they are well looked after, safeguarded, and get appropriate advice. So we're working at pace with the embassy on that. It is a small number, but it's an important number.
Despite the United States have long recognized Maduro's regime of authoritarianism, human rights abuses, repression, including post-election arrests and protests, economic mismanagement causing mass migration and poverty, and links to drug trafficking, the globalists all seem to welcome him with open arms. on Monday, I'm pretty sure we're going to see a whole bunch of protesters with their perfect little signs all standing outside the courthouse, trying to make it look like poor Maduro, his human rights are being violated. And at the same time, the UN is also having an emergency meeting to sit down and talk about this situation. I do think that there are a lot of people who are scared right now, because what I can honestly see happening is that Maduro does strike some type of deal, whether it be for his wife or, himself is yet to be determined. But I do think that there will be some sort of negotiation. And I hope that if indeed he does know about what has been going on with this corrupt globalist scheme, that he does spill the beans. I mean, we'll see. But I do think that a lot of them are scared. And this is why we're seeing so many people come out screaming over the fact that, oh, this is violating international law, Maduro's human rights. This is an act of war. Look, shut up. America's not having it anymore. We've had enough. And now it's really time to fight for this republic, because we're not out of the woods yet just because Donald Trump got into office. We need to hold on just a little longer so Donald Trump can do what he needs to do. And I do think that everything that we are seeing now is part of that. So while people might be saying, well, he's not really focusing on America first. Yes, he is. He is taking care of the homeland while he gets rid of this nasty infrastructure that's in place that has plagued and stolen from the American people. Just as how today the Venezuelans were celebrating in the streets with a feeling of hope and relief, that's exactly how I felt on election night when Donald Trump won. I'm telling you, there was real fear that the left was going to cheat again and Kamala Harris become the president. Like, things were bad, but they would have gotten a hell of a lot worse. And think about all the fraud that's going on right now and Tim Walz being exposed. Remember, he was chosen as the vice president. So imagine what that fraud would have exacerbated to. Think about that. Have patience. There will be people going to jail. Anyhow, today was a really good day, and I'm so happy for the Venezuelans. They're finally going to be able to thrive in a country that's so beautiful and so resource rich. We only hope the best for them. That's all I got for today. Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
Such a fraud.